Imagine stepping into the streets of medieval England, muddy, noisy, and brimming with odors you'd never forget. Now imagine your job is to descend into cesspits at night, shoveling human waste, because you're a medieval Gong farmer. The name Gong farmer comes from the Old English word for dung, gong. They literally farmed filth for a living. City life in the 14th century was crowded and unsanitary. Streets doubled as sewers. Hygiene was almost non-existent. To handle the overwhelming waste, towns hired Gong farmers, often at night, to clean cesspits, latrines, and privies. They worked in darkness, digging through layers of human excrement until sunrise. It was physically and mentally brutal. If you were a Gong farmer, you'd wear layers of waxed leather, not for fashion, but to shield from toxic filth. Your tools? Buckets, shovels, ropes, maybe a wooden mask soaked in vinegar to endure the stench. Cesspits could be 6 feet deep or deeper, especially under castles or monasteries, left untouched for months or years. You'd descend slowly, feeling your way with each step, hoping not to slip or pass out from the fumes. Inside, it was hot, humid, and suffocating. Ammonia and methane thickened the air. Breathing could knock you unconscious. Exposure to disease was constant. Typhoid, cholera, and dysentery claimed many lives. Yet the work always returned. Despite the risk, it paid surprisingly well. Gong farmers could earn 4 to 6 pence a day, twice that of laborers. Still, they lived on the outskirts, socially and physically. People needed them, but no one wanted to know them. In some towns, Gong farmers were forbidden to appear in daylight, their work considered too disgraceful to witness. But at night, they became unsung heroes, protectors of health, workers in darkness whose labor prevented catastrophe. Privies were often built above ground, with waste collecting in pits below, reachable only through narrow crawl spaces. Sometimes these structures collapsed. Falling into waste wasn't just disgusting, it could be deadly. Handling so much waste required more than strength. Gong farmers managed teams, routes, and disposal schedules across a living city. Once waste was removed, it had to go somewhere, usually to the fields where it became fertilizer for crops and life. This waste, called night soil, became essential to agriculture, an unclean product that grew clean food. But farms were far. Moving tons of waste over miles required carts, mules, and, on bad days, boatloads. In London alone, hundreds of tons of waste needed regular clearing, often under the cover of darkness. Some farmers came from families that did this for generations. Others were poor men desperate for work, any work. It may surprise you, but communities relied on them. Without Gong farmers, cities would collapse under their own waste. The job even had levels: foremen, haulers, diggers, and apprentices who learned by watching and enduring. There were rivalries too. Some men protected city sections as their domain. Stealing work meant fierce confrontation. The worst nights came after festivals, when excess and drunkenness overwhelmed latrines to the brim. In winter, pits froze. In summer, they fumed. There was no off-season for filth. The smell never left. Gong farmers often soaked themselves in herbs to seem tolerable in public. If asked your job, you'd deflect or joke, better than facing disgust or rejection. Children teased your children, landlords hesitated to rent, but you endured. For coin, for survival. Fires were common. Methane from waste pits could ignite with a careless lantern. Still, some called the work sacred. To purge filth was to protect health, to serve without glory. In some guilds, Gong farmers were honored with prayers, for they cleansed the world both literally and spiritually. Wheels turned slower in the Middle Ages, but the waste never stopped. Not for saints or for kings. Even castles had cesspits deep beneath. Royal Gong farmers worked in silence below opulent feasts. Ever heard of a garderobe? That was a medieval toilet, dropping waste down the tower wall into a pit below. Some castles kept herbs below garderobes, hoping the smell might rise. It didn't help much. Would you survive this life? Could you labor unseen, reviled, yet essential to survival? Everyone feared the Black Death, but without sanitation, plague was inevitable. Gong farmers stood at the gates of pestilence. Records show their numbers rose during outbreaks, proof that in the darkest times their work mattered most. Some wore iron charms or icons to ward off disease. Faith was armor against what they touched. After hours underground, they'd emerge tired, stinking, but victorious. Each load removed meant lives spared. Yet disease often caught up. Few Gong farmers lived to old age. Most were silent martyrs. Still, the streets stayed passable. The wells didn't poison, the waste didn't conquer, because someone carried it away. It's easy to forget those who work in shadows. But a city's soul is shaped by those who clean it. Modern sanitation was built on the backs of those who came before. Dirty jobs, clean futures. So if you lived then, and coin was scarce, would you take the job no one wanted, just to survive? Would you descend each night below your neighbors into layers of rot and darkness, and return again?